to Starting Line Church. Hopefully everyone is having a wonderful week. It is a good day here at Starting Line because we get to continue our series called Pre-Decide. Last week we started it. We are in the second week of it. This series is from a church called Life Church. They give out all their material on different series that they have for other churches to be able to use themselves. And so this one is one of those, and it's all about decision making. Some of us in the room, we enjoy making decisions. We find that really fun. Some of us don't like it at all. But the reality is decisions in some way, shape, or form are a big part of our lives. And not only are they take up a big part of our life, but the decisions that we make really matter. Last week, we kicked off our series talking about Abraham and his decision to pre-decide in his faith that helped him to make decisions later. And part of what we introduced was that becoming the person you want to be starts long before you actually make a decision. Living the life that God has called us to live is actually not about making decisions that we want, but making decisions ahead of time that are going to help us be faithful in really tough moments when it comes to our faith. In our time together today, we're going to talk about the first thing that we're going to pre-decide to do, and it's devotion. I am devoted. The general definition of devotion is love, loyalty, enthusiasm, even a duty towards a person, a activity, or a cause. When you're devoted to something, you are dedicated to it. You're committed to it. It means you commit your time to it. You commit your energy to it. You are passionate about whatever it is. If I say, wow, that person is devoted, I think we can all picture somebody in our head. I think of someone by the name of Caitlin Clark. If you aren't familiar with the name Caitlin Clark, she is a women's basketball player at the University of Iowa and is known to be one of the best shooters in the game of basketball. Last year, as a junior in her season, she averaged 28 points per game, shot 40% from three-point territory, which is very good. And in the NCAA tournament, she had back-to-back 40-point games, which had never been done before in men's or women's history. Needless to say, she's pretty legit. But in her interviews and conversations throughout the season, there was this theme of what she talks about. And it wasn't about her skill necessarily. It was about the hard work and the dedication that she put into the game of basketball throughout her life. Sure, is there probably some natural God-given talent? Yes, of course. But the level of her skill didn't just happen by accident. It didn't just happen by chance. She made the decision to devote herself and commit herself to becoming one of the best ever college basketball players. In a similar way, we're going to figure out how we can pre-decide to be devoted. Not to basketball, not to a workout routine, not to watching a TV series, but a heart that is devoted to Jesus. Our prayer is that with God's help, we will be devoted to Him in all that we do. In the Bible, we see the definition of devotion come from Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2, 42 says this: all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. So the disciples, the believers, is referring to the people who are known as the first century followers of Jesus. At this point, Jesus had risen from the dead. He had ascended back into heaven, and this group was responsible for the growth of the Christian church as we know it today. So it lists a bunch of these different things that they were devoted to. And in this list, we see this common theme of growing closer to God and to each other. By the way this group of people lived their lives, they were seeking Jesus first. They were committed to Jesus first. This devotion meant that everything that they did revolved around that. The Greek word for devoted here means continually single-minded, and ongoing. So the word that is used here was we are devoted and we will continue to be devoted to Jesus. It was them saying that we are going to continuously and regularly pursue God in our lives, and we don't plan on stopping anytime soon. It's a single-minded, deep, and regular pursuit. But this isn't always the case when it comes to our faith, is it? In an effort to be comfortable, popular, unbothered, not wanting to go against culture, not wanting to be told that we're wrong, we sometimes take like a really soft approach to our faith. We allow excuses like busyness, a lack of prioritizing, fear, laziness, whatever, to stop us from making time to devote ourselves to the things that help us grow our faith. To illustrate this idea, I want you to think of a long line. This line makes up all the hours in our days and how we use them. So if we have 24 hours in a day, that means there are 168 hours in 1 week. We're going to break down 1 week. If you sleep 8 hours a day, like it's recommended, that adds up to be 1/3 of your week. If then you work 8 hours a day, that adds up to be another third of your week. And when I use the term work, it's relative. Maybe it's going to an office or a physical workplace. Maybe it's being a stay-at-home parent. Maybe it's going to school. Maybe it's working from home or from your computer. Maybe it's just volunteering your time places when you step back from your career. Whatever it is, 1/3 of it is spent working. So that means that there's 1/3 of your week left for what I'm calling random stuff. Social media, television, reading, cleaning the house, getting gas in the car, mowing the yard, taking a nap, cooking dinner, eating dinner, meeting with friends, meeting with family, our hobbies, doing things for fun. We could go on. Or maybe you're filling that random stuff with the first two. You're working too much and filling your free time with that. Or you're sleeping too much and being too lazy. Regardless, what often happens is that we fill the random stuff space so quickly that we forget about the thing that matters most, our relationship with Jesus. So what happens is that we either sneak it in kind of real quick because we didn't prioritize it, we completely skip it all together because we don't have room, or we give 1 hour a week to God at church, and 1 hour only, and we think we're good to go. We think it's enough to simply believe in God and try to be a good person. We call ourselves a Christian, but that no one will ever hear about it in our life or see any evidence of it in our life. But guys, that's not the devotion that's going to help our faith thrive, and it's not the devotion that Jesus had in mind. Now, I don't know Caitlin Clark personally, but I would say with 100% confidence that she doesn't just give basketball 1 hour a week. Because if you invest only 1 hour a week into something, you're not going to be very good at it. If someone who's studying to be a doctor put 1 week of work, 1 hour a week during med school into her or his learning, would you want them to operate on you? No! But what happens in our devotion to Christ is that we become partially, sorta, kinda, maybe devoted to God, and then we wonder why we care more about what others think of us rather than what God thinks of us. We wonder why we slip back into the same old sin. We wonder why we don't want to share our faith with other people, because where faith is an all-in kind of thing, we're only giving God an hour, and sometimes not even that. Let me encourage you today. Being devoted to God isn't something we hope to do. It's not just this abstract idea or feeling that we have. We don't just wake up one morning and randomly and magically become and feel close to God all of a sudden. If we want a life that is devoted to God, it's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to happen by chance. It's based off of our devotion that we pre-decided to have. It's a decision that we made prior. So how can we be devoted to Jesus in all that we do and have this impact in all that we do, not just in 1 hour a week. We're going to be in John chapter 15, where Jesus himself is teaching his followers about what it means to be connected to him. And the example that he uses is a grapevine and its branches. We know that the grapevine produces many grapes. It's a very useful plant. A single vine actually supports many different branches at one time. That's how it produces fruit, raisins to store, wine for meals and ceremonies. The vine gives the branches what they need to grow. So if the branch ever becomes disconnected from the vine, it loses its life source. It doesn't bear fruit. It breaks so much easier, and it doesn't have the nutrients that it needs. Branches need the vine to function and live, because when it's connected to the vine, it's attached to something that's life-giving. So let's read from John chapter 15, starting in verse 4. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it's severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. The word remain here comes up a lot in these two verses. Some other translations of this same verse use the word abide. Remain in me. Abide in me. This Greek word that's used for remain and abide here means to dwell in, to live in, to be part of. And so Jesus is using this imagery of what it looks like for us to be so connected to him that we are dwelling with him and remaining in him. He is the vine and we are the branches. And it's a clear reminder that if we want to be a devoted follower of Jesus, we have to embrace all that comes with the branch. Simply put, we have to be the branch. We have to embrace being the branch. Because just like the vine is the life source for the branches, that is what Jesus is to us. We as the branch have to stay deeply connected and attached to the vine, because if we don't, all we are is a dead limb. We need Jesus to sustain us and guide us and give us what we need. So we have to pre-decide to have an ongoing, single-minded pursuit of Jesus as we stay connected to him. And the reality is, because being the branch is not just a 1 hour weekly duty to God because we are motivated by guilt or because we think we have to do it. God should not get what's last or what's left over. He shouldn't get what's easy or convenient. He shouldn't get just our half-focused attention when we have nothing else going on and when we don't have any other plans. It's an all-in devotion to the one who matters most. And if we want to do that effectively, we have to commit and embrace being the branch. So how do we do that? We pre-decide a time, a place, and a plan. We have to figure out when, where, and how we are going to be the branch. We have to figure out when. When are we going to spend time, intentional time with Jesus? Maybe it's when we get up. Maybe it's before we go to bed. Maybe it's on our lunch break. It doesn't mean we have to do it at the exact same time every single day, but pre-deciding when is going to help you remember to do it. It's going to help you not to forget it. It's going to help you be part of your day and stay on top of it. Then deciding where you're going to do something is just as important as when you're going to do it. Are you going to do it in your room or your living room or the kitchen? Are you going to do it in a public place like a coffee shop or a park? Are you going to do it at work? Doesn't need to be consistently there every time, but we have to think about the details of where this is actually going to take place. And then when something matters in life, you make a plan to do it. When it matters, when you want to do something, you get it on the calendar. So how are you going to do that as you devote yourself to your faith? Maybe it's listening to podcasts. Maybe it's listening to worship playlists when you're in the car. Maybe it's journaling or praying or having a prayer partner. Maybe it's going through a devotional or a book of the Bible or a study on Right Now Media. Maybe it's committing to regular attendance at church, or maybe joining a more group outside of Sundays. Here's a hint. It probably shouldn't just be one of those things. But we have to have a plan for how we're going to be connected to the vine, because it's not going to happen by accident. When we do these things that impact our devotion to God, we're going to find that He becomes everything. He becomes all of us, and every part of our life is affected by it. He's going to start to impact your work life and your family life and your personal life. He starts to impact the words that you say and the wisdom you receive about situations. He starts to give you ways to be an encouragement. He corrects you. He guides your steps. When we are connected to the vine, He gives us patience and goodness and faithfulness and self-control and kindness and love that we receive, and devotion to Him is going to be a result. Because there's a difference between Jesus being part of your life and Jesus being your life. What's going to outlast time on earth? What's going to bring you fulfillment unlike anything in this world? Why wouldn't you want to be devoted to that? The answer to those questions is Jesus. So my prayer for us is that we would devote ourselves not to something that is self-seeking or self-centered, but to the vine. That as the branch, we would be so connected to what is long-lasting that we become so sensitive to the Holy Spirit's voice in our life. And that His words bring us life like we have never experienced before. Thanks for joining us today as we dive into Pre-Decide. We'll see you next week as we continue.